of their vows and love to one another. When Tyree and Carolyn got married the first time, they were not able to have all of you be there with them. So they wanted to do it all over again so you could be a part of it this time, as well as to share it with their new church family. Since Tyree and Carolyn have already made covenant with one another, Pastor Roddy and I thought that we would take time to remind them, and to those of you who are already married and those of you who want to be married, what covenant is. A covenant is intended by God to be a lifelong, fruitful relationship between a man and a woman. Marriage is a vow to God, to each other, our families, and our community to remain steadfast in unconditional love, reconciliation, and sexual purity, while on purpose growing in our covenant marriage relationship. A covenant is not a contract. A contract is an agreement between two or more parties, especially one that is written and enforceable by law. Contracts are based on protection and mistrust. They allow the parties involved to look for loopholes and exit clauses, and are centered on your rights and protection. In fact, the Bible doesn't say anything about a contract. There's nothing anywhere scriptural about that. The term covenant means a coming together. In the Bible, the word covenant is translated in Hebrew 300 times, or over 300 times. The meaning of the Old Testament word is bond. A covenant refers to two or more parties bound together. The New Testament term is usually being translated as covenant, but testimony and testament have also been used. The generally accepted idea of binding or establishing a bond between two parties carries with it the concept of cleaving or sticking together like superglue. Yet covenants were not unique to God and his people. They existed besides the ones God initiated with his people. Covenant existed between families, tribes, clans, and brothers. But God brought a new element to the otherwise common practice of covenant making. God brought the divine into the ordinary. He became the initiator of a covenant with his people, which reached far beyond the grasp of mankind. The difference between a contractual and a covenant marriage, well, the contract says, I'll take thee from me. The covenant says, I give myself to thee.
All right.
The contract says, you had better do it. The covenant says, how may I serve you? The contract says, what do I give? The covenant says, what can I give? The contract says, I'll meet you halfway. The covenant says, I'll give you 100% plus. The contract says, I have to. Covenant says, I want to. A covenant marriage is intended by God to be a lifelong relationship, exemplifying unconditional love, reconciliation, sexual purity, and growth. A covenant is an eternal commitment with God. People can negotiate out of contracts, but not out of a covenant. The heart of a covenant marriage is the steadfast love of the Lord, which comes from the very heart of God, and it never ceases. What elements make up a covenant marriage? Well, number one, covenants are the fruit of loving, faithful relationship. The vows we exchange at our wedding reflect a relationship already bound by steadfast love and faithfulness. The degree in which these words have meaning comes in direct proportion to the unconditional love that dwells within our heart for the one to whom we are repeating them.
Covenant partners take responsibilities for their actions. As partners in a covenant marriage relationship, we are responsible for our actions. An example would be to remain sexually pure in our thoughts and actions toward our spouse.
Covenants are based on freedom of choice. Covenant marriages are not built on coercion, deceit, and manipulation. Wives, submission is freely given and grows from respect, not fear and manipulation. In like manner, husbands, choose daily to love your wife as Christ loved the church. You must freely choose to love and honor her in spite of the fact that you may not feel like loving and honoring her.
Covenants are rooted in actions based on choices, not feelings. Our feelings are forever changing. Therefore, to build a covenant marriage on feelings is to build it on shifting sand, which cannot support the foundation of a marriage.
Covenant partners nurture their relationship. Our marriage will grow as we build up one another in love. This takes place when we value our spouse more than ourselves. As we experience the unconditional love of Jesus Christ, we're able to love our spouse as he loves us. Covenant partners administer unconditional love, forgiveness, and reconciliation while providing comfort and hope to their partner. Covenants are based on commitments freely offered. A covenant is built on selfless love, freely given and freely received. As strange as it may sound, a covenant marriage is one in which the tie that binds the couple together is a commitment freely offered with no strings attached. Paul said it well, love never fails. God does have a plan for your marriage, for our marriages. He desires to see your love grow and bear fruit. The goal of a covenant marriage is not to merely enjoy each other's company, nor is it to simply endure to the end. The goal of a covenant marriage is to glorify God in your relationship and to exemplify Christ to the world.
Tyree and Caroline, as you continue in this union, you already know that it will continue to take a lot of love and work to keep your relationship an ongoing success. Many couples tend to think of marriage as a 50-50 proposition. We actually believe that the best relationships are 100%, with God being the head. If you give 100% commitment of yourselves to each other, you will have a formula that will continue to bring both of you happiness for a lifetime.
Yes.
Tyree and Carolyn, we remind you that marriage is a precious gift, a lifelong dedication to love and daily challenge to love one another more fully and more freely. You promise to love, honor, and cherish one another through all things. The vows you are now renew are a solemn pledge of love and are a reaffirmation of your commitment to one another. Please face one another. And y'all already holding hands, so I have to say